Hi there, Neil Clark of Falkirk Piping, www.falkirkpiping.com, and on Facebook under Falkirk Piping and Glenbervie Folk Duo. This is lesson 12 in our How to Learn the Bagpipes series. Lessons 9, 10 and 11 consisted of 3 very simple tunes which can be played using the embellishments that you've already learned. It's time to move on to other embellishments now, and in this lesson we will encounter every doubling from low G to low A. Now, I have recommended 3 books so far. The National Piping Centre and the College of Piping both teach the doublings as they are encountered in the tunes that we use for progressing. And that's actually the way that I would teach as well, were I teaching face-to-face or on Skype. However, I need a complete lesson concerning doublings only, and in this case we're going to stick more or less to Robert Wallace's book, where the doubling lesson is contained in chapter 11, also on page 11. Now, looking at it on the book, it looks quite daunting because there's a big massive stave of countless doublings. However, we're going to split that up and show you them individually. The doublings are called doublings because there are 2 of something in the movement. There will definitely be 2 themal notes. So for instance, for a doubling on low G, there will be 2 low Gs. There will also, in 90% of the cases, be 2 grace notes, but not in all, as we'll see. So we're going to start with that low G doubling, because it's the simplest to perform and it should help you get started. So, before we do that, actually, I'll show you the whole doubling scale. Please remember, you'll see my fingers are coming a fair distance off that practice chanter. You don't have to do that. So, back to this low G doubling. Remember, it's an embellishment, so the grace note portions are single fingers only as usual. Also, the first grace note, in this case, should be played before the themal note. We're going to try a solitary low G doubling, which will consist of 1 G grace note starting on the G embellishment there to low G, followed by, immediately by, a D grace note to low G. It should sound like this. Please pause the video and practice that now. That should have been easy enough, as long as you can cover that low G hole competently. There shouldn't have been too much of a problem there. What we're going to look at now, however, is progressing up the scale using the low G doubling. We're going to go from low A as a starting note to F as a starting note, and the reason for that is when we come to high G and high A, circumstances change a little and we must use an alternative. So coming from low A, talking you through that first, we're going to start on low A. We then must raise the G finger in preparation for this first G grace note, placing the G finger and the A finger down together to form a low G, and immediately following it with a D grace note to low G to complete the doubling like this. Before we start on the whole scale, let's just have a little practice at that. Remember, we're not going to start in low A. We are going to start in low A. And then we will introduce the G grace note down to low G, making sure both fingers come down together, and the D grace note on low G. Please pause the video and practice that now. Now, grabbing the bull by the horns, we're now going to try and progress up to F. Please take your time on the themal note, on the starting note. You have all the time in the world to move from that starting note to the doubling, so use it as thinking time for what's going to happen next. Please also note, coming off that F there, yes, your 3 fingers will be off the practice chanter to make that grace note. That doesn't matter. Lift the G finger up to join the F and the E. Place all 3 down at once. The alternative would be, of course, to raise the G, place the E and the F down, and then place the G finger down. And that would be correct, but it's certainly a lot more work. It's quite competent to raise the 3 and place them down as 1. Let's have a look at that one more time, and when I finish, please pause the video and practice that scale. Remember to breathe wherever you have to. Please pause the video now and practice the low G grace note scale to F. Now, we mentioned earlier on that there's a slight change coming to the low G grace note, to low G doubling, sorry, from high G. And that's because coming from high G, we can't put a G grace note in. It's impossible to do. We can't do it. So we have 2 choices. The first choice is to do as we've just shown and just completely omit the high G doubling. That would be played like this. And it's known as a half doubling because we don't have that high G grace note there. The second method we can use is to substitute the high A for the G grace note and produce a high A grace note or a back grace note as the first grace note. So coming from high G, high G, thumb off the back of the chanter. Yes, the whole hand is off the chanter, but don't forget this will be for a portion of a second, not long at all. All fingers back on and the low A back on to form the G, then followed immediately by the D grace note. We will go over that again before you pause the video. Before we do that, let's look at high A. In high A, we don't have an alternative. We can't produce the G grace note coming from high A. The only alternative we have is to produce the half doubling, and that's to miss out the G portion of the doubling movement from high A to low G and immediately the D grace note. Let's have a look at the 3 of them. Now, bearing in mind when we practice the whole scale, we will not use the half doubling, we will use the high A grace note doubling. So, coming from high G, the first half doubling. Now the high A doubling, high A grace note doubling, sorry, to low G. Finally, high A half doubling to low G. Please practice the doublings from high G to low G and high A to low G now. That's us completed the full G doubling scale from every other note. We're going to put that together, and we're also going to progress through the low A doubling, the B doubling and the C doubling because they're exactly the same as far as embellishments goes. This is going to sound like quite a lot, but please take your time. Low G first. Moving on to low A. We'll practice these notes from every note except the note concerned with the doubling itself. Pretty much the same as low G. Just remember you're finishing on a different note. Now, on to B. And finally, C. A bit more work in this as we have to form a proper C every time. That's quite a lot to show you, but please remember you can pause this video at any time. However, that's you learned the doublings on low G, low A, low B, B, and C. 5 in total, and all the same embellishments. Please pause the video now and practice your doubling scales from low G to C. Moving on to D. This is where things start to change because up to now we have performed the doubling by applying a G grace note and a D grace note. We will still make the first part of the embellishment the G grace note for D, E and F. It will, however, be followed by an E grace note. That's the next finger up from D. We had been using the D as the second embellishment. We're now going to use E. So, the D doubling in itself is produced by a G grace note to D followed by an E grace note to D. And that's the first time we begin to get a wee bit wiggly up on the top hand. Please control your fingers. That's just as much part of the mastery of any embellishment, in fact, than understanding how to play it. We have one G grace note followed by one E grace note. Don't give me the wiggly D finger. One grace note of each. So, the D doubling. Starting on the G finger, please pause the video now and practice the D doubling. Now we will do the whole scale here, using the same alternatives coming from high G and high A. So, there's a lot of movement concerned there because you're up and down all the time producing a proper D, particularly when coming from the top hand. Let's have a look at that one more time. pause the video now and practice the D doubling from every other note on the scale. Welcome back. We're now going to look at the E doubling, and that's a natural progression. We formed the D doubling by producing a G grace note followed by an E grace note on D. We're now going to start with the G grace note again, this time to E, followed by the next finger up an F grace note to E. G grace note to E, F grace note to E, like this. Again, please note you do not have to raise your fingers quite so far off the chanter as I do. I'm doing that for demonstration purposes only. Please pause the video now and practice the E doubling by itself. Now, just the same as in every case prior to this, we're going to do the scale with the E doubling. Work to do there in the top hand, and remember, coming from the high G, it's still the half doubling to E. Sorry, it's the high A is the first embellishment in the doubling to E. I'm not pausing the video to do it again at this stage. And coming from the high A, it's the half doubling to E. Let's have a look at that again. Please take your time with these doublings. They can be as slow, as open and deliberate as you want. You're looking for correct fingering at this stage. Any speed or clever technique can come in later. Let's just try getting things right at this stage. Nearly finished now. F doubling, we've only got one finger left to do that with. 2 G grace notes, starting with the G grace note, remember. Simply 2 G grace notes to F. Please pause the video and practice that now. Just as before, we're going to practice the F doubling from every other note on the chanter. And we still do, when we get to high G, we still do the back grace note or high A start there. So, remember and form proper themal notes before you launch into the doublings. Please pause the video now and practice the F doubling from every other note on the scale. Now lastly, Robert doesn't show this in his book, but we're going to have a little look at it as well. The high G doubling and the high A doubling can also be described purely as a high G strike or a high A strike. Let's look at the high G first. G, F, G. Now people frequently get confused between the F doubling and the high G doubling. Please remember that whatever name the doubling gets, F, G, E, that's the note you're going to finish on. So the F doubling will finish on an F. 2 G grace notes to F. The G, and this is what we were talking about way back when we talked about why the doublings are called doublings. There are only 2 themal notes in a high G, there are not 2 grace notes. We start and finish on the high G. That's quite easy. Let's do high A is exactly the same. Starting on high A and striking the thumb or passing the thumb over the high A hole to make a quick high G and then a second high A. So the high G then, high A. Please pause the video and practice these movements now. Now, nearly done. Let's just do that from every note in the chanter there. We still managed to do it from high A, G, F, G. Please pause the video now and practice the high G doubling from every note on the scale. Moving on finally to the high A doubling. From every note on the scale, it's quite simple. Remember, raise the pinky every time you head up to perform the doubling because you're on the top hand. Now, I believe I missed a note out there, so you can put in that extra note that I missed out. Now that's us completed the lesson on the doublings, including a small explanation of half doublings and the use of the high A grace note to substitute for the high G grace note. I'm not going to go through 9 different scales before I go. These are worth practicing, and you must know how to perform the doublings without even thinking about what is involved in the makeup of the doubling. If somebody says there's an E doubling there, then it's a G grace note followed by an F grace note. Please learn these embellishments to the extent that you don't have to think about what is involved in actually executing the embellishment itself. It has to be second nature without thinking about it. Now that might take you some time, please persevere with it. In the meantime, here's the doubling scale. Thanks very much. I'm Neil Clark of Falkirk Piping, www.falkirkpiping.com, and on Facebook under Falkirk Piping and Glenbervie Folk Duo. That was lesson 12 in our How to Learn the Bagpipes series. In lesson 13 we'll continue with another embellishment. This will be the grip or lem luath. Thank you very much. Happy piping.